And good morning, everyone. This is Common Sense America, and I am Eden Hill. Thank you so much for being with us as you are listening on Talk Radio Defenders Live. We are live streaming also on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and also on Facebook if you would like to watch the show. We're grateful to have you here on a beautiful Tuesday morning. It is Tuesday morning, October the 4th. And I wanted just to send out a couple birthday wishes. On Sunday, it was my brother's birthday. Happy birthday up there in Gannett Square, Pennsylvania. Also, happy birthday to my godson, Aiden Hayslip. He is 15 years old and learning how to drive. I can't believe it. And I want to send out just a birthday wish to him. He is in the Swansboro High School marching band, and I'm so proud of all the work that he's doing. He's a freshman over there. So, hey, Aiden, I'm so thankful for what you have done and what you're doing. I'm proud of you. And also, thank you for all the door knocking you did with me during, as my co-campaign manager during the primary. You are phenomenal, and I'm so proud of you. Also, tomorrow is my campaign manager's birthday. It's interesting how my campaign manager and my co-campaign manager's birthdays are back to back. So we will be sending out a special birthday wish to Kimberly. I call her my Kimberly, my Kimmy girl, everything else, but everybody knows her as Kimberly Tisver, but I call her my Lejeune spouse. That's how I originally heard about her. And our friendship has just grown ever since, aside from the campaign. I'm just grateful for her. So sending out many birthday wishes. This morning, we have a one interview this morning that is coming to us, and it is the news editor, Joseph Weber, who is with Just the News. He will be talking to us about North Carolina ballot frauds. He will be talking to us what's ahead for the battleground state. And I'll also be going over some of the North Carolina State Board of Elections items that you need to know as we head into midterm elections November 8th, which is right around the corner. We're at 34 days. Yes, that is 34 days where we need to discuss and we need to talk about the issues at hand, the issues for the great state of North Carolina, and the great state of what is happening in our country. We do have a dictator in chief, and I know I have a lot of people who are supporting me in that, and I have a lot of people who are not. I don't care if you don't support me. I don't care about that whatsoever. I'm going to speak my mind, and I'm going to speak my mind today and every other day that I get to remain on the air. I may get censored, and I love the fact that Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is bringing it up to Congress and how so many conservatives are being censored. And I'm afraid that that is continuing to happen, and it's not right. And, life isn't fair, but you know what? We do have freedom of speech. That was what was originally intended. So we will be talking a lot about what is ahead in our nation. We have the opportunity to get out and vote. We have the opportunity to educate ourselves on what is happening in our nation. I'll tell you what, also, as I ran for state house and I saw a lot of corruption in and around me within the other aspects of the election, I saw it all around me. My husband and I saw it. Now, I'm not surprised, but I am disappointed in this area that it has gone on for as long as it has. And you guys are all aware who do follow this show that the Crystal Coast Tea Party does have allegations against it for financial fraud. There's a lot of things happening in this area, in Crystal Coast, in Eastern North Carolina, that the voters are just turning our heads to and dismissing. Well, when are you going to stand up? When are you going to stand up and fight for your vote? You need to. You need to understand what is at stake in our country. Do you want lower gas prices? Do you want to be able to put more food on your table? Do you want to continue living paycheck to paycheck? I don't think so. But you guys, it starts here at the local level. It starts here at the local level. We may be seeing what Washington is doing and the disgusting swamp-like creatures that are trickling down into the beautiful waters and our waterways. But you know what? It does start at the local level. That is what I appreciate about Governor Ron DeSantis. I call him America's governor, and I also see presidential leadership in that man and in his wife. He invested in local elections. He invested in the school board elections because he saw what was happening. When are we going to stand up for what is right? Our faith, our family, our lives in the public square. I'm all about God on this show, and I am not going to stand down on that. I'm all about our family, and I'm all about our faith and our freedom. We have a lot at stake in the United States of America. So, we're going to talk about what happened just a couple weeks ago in Just the News, the North Carolina ballot fraud. Joseph Weber, who reported the story, he's the news editor at Just the News. He also came from Fox News and also worked at the Washington Times. So he will be joining us here in the next few minutes. And then in the last half of the show, we're going to be talking about something else that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is mental health. World Mental Health Day is Monday, October the 10th. Mark it on your calendars. But here's the thing. Mental health is not just a day on the calendar or just a month in the year. It is daily. So we need to be talking about that. Marcy Friesner, who is the director of Salt and Light Academy, who's an educator, who's a powerful mom, an author, she's going to join us on Monday, and we're going to talk about World Mental Health Day. We're going to talk about the suicide rates here in Eastern North Carolina. We're going to talk about the epidemic aspect. We're going to talk about the trauma, the drug abuse that comes along with mental health, and we're going to talk about prevention, and we're going to talk about faith. Also, Governor DeSantis's wife is talking about mental health post the hurricane. So we're going to be featuring some of that this later part of the show. But without further ado, I'm eager to bring over Joseph Weber. And before I do that, I want to send out a thank you to Will Baker, Town of Cape Carteret Mayor, also known as the Will and Tony Show. He has sent over some of his great music, and you were just listening to I-95. I absolutely love it. I've been bouncing to it all morning, getting ready for the show. I'm high on music, high on water, high on God, and high on coffee. So I wanted to just send out a quick thank you to him. And as we're waiting for our next guest, we're going to be playing another song really quickly. It's called Walk a While. So stand by as we listen, and we'll be right back with our guest. Well, thank you for those who are staying and tuned in to Common Sense America. I'm Eden Hill. I'm so glad to be here with you this morning. We are waiting on our next guest, Joseph Weber, who is the news editor for Just the News. And I'm grateful that he is able to join us this morning. He will be coming over shortly. We did have a cancellation this morning for our 9:30 segment. But you know what? Things happen. I look out this morning. I'm grateful for another day. I'm grateful for another day that the Lord has made. We have opportunities to take this day and we have an opportunity to serve no matter what happens. And tomorrow, I just wanted to let you know, after our show tomorrow, I will be over at Salt and Light Academy joining my friend Marcy Friesner, who I just told you about. And we're going to be talking about elections. We're going to be talking about voting. We're going to be talking to the high school, elementary, and middle school students about how to run an election and what it takes to be a candidate. So I'm looking forward to it. I love speaking to students. I love engaging our education. I love engaging our parents and seeing that our parental rights, not mine, I am not a parent, but I'm a godparent, but seeing the parental rights being stood up for in our nation. And I'm so grateful to my friend Elizabeth Nader, Common Sense New Jersey. I'm thankful for Barbara from Harlem. She has her own show on Our Urban Story, and she talks about fighting for parental rights and fighting against CRT. Also, Melanie Collette, who will be with us on Thursday. She's also a radio show host on 98.7 The Coast. She's also a Newsmax commentator, and she will be joining us talking about the education issues. And then finally, my dear friend, Ramona Bessinger. She's also a school teacher in Rhode Island, and she has been in school teacher jail because she's fighting the CRT curriculum. So parents out there, if you are needing a little extra assistance, help, guidance, tools, etc., join the show because we're going to be talking about education. We're going to be talking about fighting CRT. We're going to be talking about the mental health crisis. We're going to be talking about how do we talk to our kids? How do we talk to our teenagers? It is very important, and it is such a hot topic, especially with the high suicide rates that are happening in and around the nation, and also right here in our backyard, here in Eastern North Carolina. We need to wake up to what is happening. I've heard within the past couple months, from running for state house to today, of a handful of students who have committed suicide. That's a handful too many. We need to be standing up and talking about this. We need to be going in and connecting over coffee. We need to be connecting with one another in private groups. We need to be praying for one another. We need to be lifting one another up. There's so much that is happening in and around our world and our nation. And so I'm encouraging you to join our show this week. We have On Common Sense America. Like I said, we have Melanie Collette, who's an educator and also a radio show host. We also will be bringing to the show tomorrow my dear friend Catherine Haley, who worked for Speaker of the House John Boehner. She has now started her own group. It's called the Oak Rose Group, and it's based out of Arizona. We have known each other since roughly, I believe, about 2006, when we were on the campaign trail for my former boss, Senator Rick Santorum. And I've watched her she is a phenomenal human, but she's also fighting. She's connecting. She is advocating. She cares about the education. She worked on education issues for the speaker at that time period. She is working with the current governor of Arizona, very powerful in her own right. Another woman in leadership. I am grateful for her. She will be joining the full show tomorrow for about 45, 50 minutes, where we're going to be breaking it down for the audience. And if you are unable to watch tomorrow, know that this will be available on my Rumble page and also my website, edengordonmedia.com. I post all of my interviews there. If you've missed one, we are very much focused on empowering one another. Also, as we are still waiting for our guests to come over, I wanted to also just share something with you that I follow a lot on my Instagram page. I want to encourage you out there who are watching and who are listening. Susie Larson, author, she's on Instagram. And every morning when I get up and have my coffee and my God time, I sit down and I do peruse the news. But I first and foremost, I go to the Proverbs 31 woman. And I also look at their Bible studies and then start following them on Instagram because they are just filled with such fruit and knowledge. Her morning blessings for yesterday, and I want to share them with you. for this morning. Morning blessings. May you be honest with God about the hurts in your heart. May you discern the difference between grief and self-pity. May you be okay with not always being okay. God will one day wipe away every tear from your eye, but until then, He'll help you walk this journey with peace in your heart and assurance in your step. He is with you. One day, Jesus will turn your mourning into dancing and your sorrow into songs of joy. In the meantime, enjoy the little graces you find along the way. Celebrate the small victories. Dare to dream and take one step at a time. You're going to be okay. Blessings on your day today. And the verse for today is Psalm 30, 11, and 12. You have turned my mourning into joyful dancing. You have taken away my clothes of mourning and clothed me with joy, that I might sing praises to you and not be silent. O Lord, my God, I will give you thanks forever and ever. You know, I'm glad that we still have the freedom to read our Bibles. I'm still so thankful we have the freedom to speak about our faith in the public square, because one of these days that could no longer be available. I'm grateful as I'm holding up my Bible, the Candace Cameron Bible. You can get it on QVC and Amazon. I got it a little cheaper on Amazon. I'm grateful that we still are able to hold these, because I remember when I was doing a short-term mission trip to China, I remember I'm looking for the right word so I don't give away too much. We were going over as short-term missionaries as teaching English. These were not available. So hold this close, hold it tight, study daily. And you know what? For all of those who are pagans, atheists, don't believe in a God, don't believe that there's a hell, I pray for you and I pray for your futures, because God is so powerful. He breaks down the walls. He breaks the chains. He heals. He's a protector and he is a provider. And so I am grateful for my salvation. And I'm going to talk about that until the day I die. So for any of you who want to censor that, I don't care. God knows. Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Censor it. Because you know what? God is more powerful than any platform out there. I'm going to go ahead and read the article that Joseph Weber wrote. And I'm not sure if he's going to be able to join us. It looks as though there's been a complication, but that's okay. I have plenty of time to speak with you guys today, and I'm grateful for each and every one of you who are tuning in. And for those who listen even after the show is live, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for your support. So thank you. So I'm going to read the article that JusttheNews published. It was the end of about last week or so, updated on September 27th. So it is still very current. Joseph Weber, the editor over at JusttheNews, wrote this article. 4 people in North Carolina have pleaded guilty to misdemeanors for their roles in absentee ballot fraud in a rural part of the state. The fraud occurred in 2016 and 2018 elections, and the convictions stemmed from an investigation that in part resulted in a congressional election having to be redone, according to the Associated Press. The defendants entered a plea Monday with prosecutors, which Superior Court Judge Paul Ridgway accepted in his Wake County Court. As part of the agreement, none will have to serve active prison or jail time. Cases against 6 other defendants remaining pending, with hearings scheduled through the next month, County District Attorney Lauren Freeman told the Wire Services. All 10 defendants, according to the 2019 indictments, were connected to Leslie McCrae Dallas Jr., a longtime political operative in the state who was indicted on more than a dozen state charges. Dallas' case was set to go to trial last month, but died in April due to lung cancer. He also worked in the 2018 congressional race for then Republican candidate Mark Harris, who appeared to have received the most votes in the general election for the 9th Congressional District in South Central North Carolina. Allegations against Dallas surfaced, and testimony and other information revealed at a State Board of Elections hearing describing him running an illegal ballot harvesting operation for the 2018 general election in Bladen County. According to testimony, Dallas and others gathered hundreds of absentee ballots from voters by offering to put them in the mail. Some of the workers, they said, were directed to collect blank or incomplete ballots, forge signatures on them, and even fill in votes for local candidates. It is essentially against North Carolina law for anyone other than the voter or a family member to handle someone else's completed ballot. Let me repeat that. It is essentially against North Carolina law for anyone other than the voter or a family member to handle someone else's completed ballot. Just FYI for Eastern North Carolina, it is illegal. The election board ordered a new 9th district election. No charges were filed against Harris, who didn't run in the subsequent election. The state investigation also led to charges of similar absentee ballot activities in Bladen for 2016 general and 2018 primary. The defendants Monday, Rebecca D. Thompson, Tanya Marie Gordon, Ginger Shea Eason, and Kelly Hendricks all pleaded guilty to conspiracy to possess absentee ballots. They all received suspended jail sentences, probation, and 100 hours of community service. So there's a lot to talk about that. And again, this is from Just the News. 4 plead guilty in North Carolina ballot fraud cases. The defendants entered a plea, and as a part of their agreement, none will have to serve active prison or jail time. And that is the headline. You know, I would love to hear some of your calls, your comments, your thoughts on this as we are headed into, what did I say, 34 days until the midterm elections. Are we going to see more of this ballot fraud? Are we going to see it here in Eastern North Carolina? Are we going to see it in Carteret County? Are we going to see it in Craven County? Are we going to see it in Onslow and Jones? My question is, are we going to see it? Because you know what? Other things are starting to come to the surface. When I was on the campaign trail, I saw so much corruption and I sought to expose it. I may not have many friends here in Eastern North Carolina, but I wasn't looking for friends. I was looking to fight justice and fight the system that is so corrupt. So if any of you would like to call into the show, I know I have many friends and family listening in. You have my numbers. You can call and I will put you on the air if you'd like to talk about it. My question to each and every one of you and those who will be listening in later, what are we going to do about this battleground state? Because if this continues to happen, we are going to see something that we are not going to be happy with in 2024. That is a big issue. As we head into 2024, there is so many things at stake. So I'm going to ask you, 1, have you educated yourself on your local officials? 2, have you educated yourself on what's happening in your state legislature? 3, have you educated yourself on what is happening in your Senate and House races? And 4, are you really watching what is happening at the White House, or are you putting your head in the sand until we get to 2024? Because that's not going to do you any good either. I want you to think about that. My concern is for our next generation. My concern is for my godson, who I mentioned earlier. My concern is for the kids that we mentor. My concern is our next generation. Are they going to be so stuck on their phones and so stuck in artificial intelligence that we do not have a United States that has leadership? Yesterday, I talked with one of my book authors. Her husband served at the Naval Academy. Her husband served as an aviator. Her husband served a Fortune 500 company leading it. And we talked about the lack of leadership that we have in our United States of America, whether it's at the very top of our government or whether it's at the local level. Do we see it in the schools? Do we see it in our homes? We are looking for a leader. We are looking for someone who believes in this country. We are looking for someone who is not going to put us aside for a global reset. We are looking for those who believe in the United States of America, who have faith in God, who believe in the founders and what this country stood for, who believe in the Second Amendment, who believe in freedom of speech. What are you looking for? Are you looking for a leader, or are you looking for someone who's going to put more money in your pocket and then say, I'm going to tax you on it later? Because that's what we have right now. That's what we have right now. It's 9:25 a.m. Eastern Time. It is Tuesday, October the 4th. Happy birthday to my godson. I'm grateful for you. Happy birthday to my brother. I know you're in your 40s and our skin fits. It's the best feeling ever. We'll be right back. I'm going to play another great song from Will Baker and his music. It's called Beautiful Moment. And we're back. It is just about 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. It's Tuesday, October the 4th. Thank you for those who are joining in. This is Common Sense America. I'm Eden Hill. And we've been talking about North Carolina elections. We've been talking about the ballot fraud, and we're also talking about what is to come as we are a battleground state and how we need to educate ourselves on who are we going to be voting for. I do hope to get some of the local candidates on the show in the next couple weeks as we head into November 8th. But on that note, I wanted to also just kind of give you an overview of what's happening in North Carolina, the overview on the State Board of Elections upcoming election. The statewide general election is November the 8th, 2022. Also, the statewide general election is also known as midterms. And we have one United States Senate seat. We have 14 U.S. House seats. We have several state offices, General Assembly, Supreme Court, and Court of Appeals. We have local judges and prosecutors, and we also have county offices like sheriff and county commissioners. What I would encourage you to do is to get your sample ballot. You can easily type in your first, your last name, your birth date, your address. It will pull up when you voted in your area, and it will also pull up your sample ballot. My sample ballot here in Carteret County, North Carolina, shows us this: United States Senate, United States House of Representatives for District 3, state offices, North Carolina Supreme Court Associate Justice, Seat 3. Also, Seat 5, Seat 8, Seat 9, Seat 10, Seat 11. That is quite a few as it comes to North Carolina Supreme Court Associate Justices. Also, appeals judge again. So we have a lot going on in our judicial races, something to really think about as we head into 2024. Also, North Carolina State Senate. We have North Carolina Representative District 13. We have district offices for North Carolina Superior Court Judge. We have county offices, Board of Commissioners. We have Board of Education. So there are a lot of local, state, and federal offices that we need to be focused on. So I encourage you to go out and get your sample ballot. That is really important as we head into the coming elections. And also, I am grateful that Mr. Weber from JusttheNews has just been able to pop over and join the show. We're going to add him to the show. Hi, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. I was just talking to our audience. You're on Common Sense America on Meaden Hill. Thank you for joining us on Talk Radio and also our social platforms. We were just reading your article about the North Carolina ballot fraud, and we are here located in eastern North Carolina, not too far from Raleigh. We're in the Crystal Coast area, Carteret County, and we have been seeing a lot of different illegal activities and exposure of what's going on. I did run for state house for the primary back in May, and I've been talking on my show ever since about what was uncovered. I would love to hear more, though, about the ballot fraud story you posted back in the end of September, and what you are thinking and what you are seeing could come here in this battleground state at the different state levels.
Well, I'll tell you, for lack of better words, it's a pretty crazy story when you really think about what's going on here. 10 people were involved in absentee ballot fraud in the 2016 and 2018 elections in rural southern North Carolina, and I believe like Bladen County.
Mm-hmm.
And with regard to that, four of them in September here, as you just said, pleaded guilty to misdemeanor charges, but they were up against felony charges. They were essentially collecting ballots and requests for ballots. Many of them didn't even have, when they were turning them in, didn't have names on them or addresses or anything like that. I guess it's alarming to think that something could happen. It was so widespread that the actual election had to be done over again. If you probably remember that, it was in 2018, the congressional race for then Republican candidate Mark Harris, and he appeared to have won the race. And then when they started looking at the voting fraud, they redid the election. He did not run again, but that race, and then I believe the Republicans lost that race as a result of that. But we're really, trying to look. The odd thing about it, there was a guy, quote unquote, as a district attorney referred to this, Leslie McCrae Dallas, the ringleader.
Yeah,
he was facing charges. I'm sure a lot of your listeners know about this, and one wonders why it took so long here in 2022 to get this case to trial. As I said, there's still 6 more defendants, but COVID and the delays in the court systems and stuff like that really delayed the whole process here. So there's folks wondering why it took so long. But
Mhm.
if you read a lot of the details, the court documents and stuff, these folks said they were oddly friends of Dallas, and they did it as a favor for him, or out of consideration for him. They were being paid nominal amounts of money, maybe $5 for
Mhm.
absentee ballot requests, and maybe $100 for a real request. So I guess you really try to look this is in the larger context. Like you take a look at, say, Dominion voting systems and concerns about that, and widespread balloting problems in Fulton County or Maricopa and Arizona, somewhere in Michigan. But then you take a look at, that's the larger scale, or disinformation about elections. We just saw the Department of Homeland Security put out a bulletin that said yesterday that said, Russia is looking to do this again, and China is targeting candidates whom they feel are, against Beijing. So you take a look at this very larger scale, and then
Mhm.
you take a look at this very, very small operation, a very rural part of North Carolina.
Mhm.
So election integrity is an issue that, can happen on a very small basis and
Mhm.
on a very large scale basis.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. I was talking a lot about the local elections and what I've seen in Carteret County in the time that I've lived here since 2012, but I've been involved in behind the scenes in many campaigns, federal campaigns, for most of my communications career. And even, when I was at Fox Business, I know you were at Fox News as well.
Yeah.
Always watching what was going on, especially with the Iowa State Fair. And that year it was presidential, and just always watching behind the scenes. But and then now, most currently, when I was a candidate and being at the very forefront, I was the only candidate who was exposing the truth and what was going on in our backyard. And let me mention this to you. I don't know if you're aware of this article. It came out probably just, I would say, it came out around the same time your article came out, and it was in our local paper, the Carteret County News-Times. The Crystal Coast Tea Party is under investigation for allegedly violating election laws. And the story goes on about what they've had an inactive status with the North Carolina Board of Elections. But yes, they're still they haven't filed anything, but yet they're still collecting money. And so my question to you is, in that article, and I'll send that over to you, how deep do we have to go to find this voter fraud, to have more election integrity, as North Carolina is a huge battleground state, and all I'm thinking about is 2024 at this point.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts in just telling you about the illegal activity that we're seeing on this part of the state, where you have been reporting on that part of the state? What are your thoughts to that?
Uh, a couple things real quick. The North Carolina Senate race for the open seat of Richard Burr,
Yeah.
in which Bud appears to be taking a slight lead. That's going to be a pivotal race. It's going to help decide, whether Democrats or Republicans control the Senate next year. It's narrow now, 50-50
Yeah.
split. One or two races are going to go either way. So, election integrity, I would say, I'm not in the business of making opinions, but I would say as an analysis, as a reporter, whether you believe, what allegations of widespread, election fraud in the 2020 elections, or you don't, I think everyone would agree, and I can sort of back this up at the end of the sentence, that at least the concerns about it have really heightened the Americans' awareness that the potential for fraud is there.
Yes.
So I think that's, a good thing. And you take a look in Congress now, there's bipartisan bills to bolster election integrity. One that even Mitch McConnell, who is the Senate Minority Leader, the Kentucky Republican, even he's shown support for that. So I think, if there is a silver lining to all this, it's that Americans become more aware that, I think for a long time, we just went along assuming, that our election system was safe. And I think this has really brought, it to the forefront that we shouldn't assume such.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And as I've been doing this show ever since the primary, I've been talking about how we need to educate ourselves on what is actually going on in the local election. I also feel as though, having seen the past couple of years of COVID, it opened the eyes to the parental rights and their lack thereof when it came to local boards, local elections, and what their children were being taught from the CRT and the transgender and everything that happened in Fairfax and Loudoun County really raised the flag on that. But it really came back to, as we circle back, the local elections, educating yourself on what is going on in your backyard. And I really think, this is my opinion, that Governor DeSantis has been really acting and presenting in a way when it comes to his involvement, his endorsements of a lot of the local school board members who were running for election, and just endorsing them and being a part of that local process. We do not see that here in North Carolina. And, taking a step back, removing myself as a candidate, I am wanting to educate the next generation. I'm wanting to educate my community, and seeing what you are exposing at Just the News in this ballot fraud case, I can only imagine how many more are out there. My question to you is, from your standpoint and reporting on this story, will you be doing a follow-up to what's going to be coming down the pike? And are you investigating any other states with this ballot fraud?
Sure. Obviously, or presumably obviously, as I like to say, I certainly have an interest in the outcome of these other six defendants in this case. Like we talked about before, they received misdemeanor charges, but they were up against felony charges, and they plea bargained. I don't know whether these other six, whether their charges are going to be felony, or whether they're, and if they're going to plea bargain for misdemeanor. So that's certainly it. We're always on the lookout for election fraud. I think that, as a watchdog of all elections, for all reporters are on the lookout for this. One thing that I would like to circle back on is the point that you made about connecting, I guess, parents and voter and Americans' awareness about really what's going on, and how COVID brought that to the forefront, and we saw that a lot. And Virginia GOP Governor Glenn Youngkin, he won. He beat Terry McAuliffe, who was very popular in that state and a very powerful Democratic figure. And he largely did it on a brilliant strategy of deciding that he's going to focus on public education. And it became, as you know, Northern Virginia, sort of a ground zero for this idea of, what parents do and don't know about what's going on in their schools and their curriculum. And he rode that to victory. And as you see now, he's being asked to go all around the country from gubernatorial candidates who want them on his shoulder, on the dais or the platform there in the campaign trail, because this has been a winning formula for him. And, if you're trying to be as objective as possible, as someone who's covered politics for a long time, that was brilliant. Public schools and what's going on and what parents need to know and what parents have a right to know. And I think you're going to see this more and more in not only this election, but in 2024 and going forward.
No, I completely agree with you. And I will add to that. Common Sense New Jersey, Common Sense Club in New Jersey. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them.
I am, yes.
Elizabeth Nader and Bill Spadia and that whole crew, they are really at the forefront as well for the great state of New Jersey, really pushing this parental rights, coming up with that aspect. I mean, that is powerful. Parents are needing that. And it's great that there are groups like the Common Sense Club of New Jersey and what Elizabeth Nader and Bill Spadia are doing, and their whole team.
They have a powerful, the movement at large has a pretty powerful talking point that says, parents, the government doesn't own children, parents do. Now, obviously, government has, important roles in making oversight to make sure that, their children are protected, but parents have a role to say, what the curriculum is. And I think for a longest time, until COVID and Youngkin and other people like Common Sense up in New Jersey, again, people assumed a lot about, what elected officials and, government officials were doing without really taking the time to dig in.
No, that's exactly it. We are about quarter till 10 on the time period, and I know that we had a couple complications getting you on. I would just love to ask you one more question
Sure.
on behalf of Just the News and what you're doing over there. I'm grateful for your reporting. What do you see? We are at 34 days till the midterms. What are you thinking in regards to some of the bigger states? We are a battleground state here in North Carolina. But in regards to the Senate races and some of the bigger federal races, what are you seeing on the horizon that we could be looking for? And a lot of my listeners are very conservative. They are faith based, they are patriotic, they are veterans, they are military spouses. So I want to be able to give them some tips from a toolkit of here's what we need to be looking for. Here's how we can activate, empower, connect, and get involved. What are some of the things that you could say that you see on the horizon that we could be prepared for or engage in?
Well, I think, just the reporting today, a lot of the inside, quote unquote, inside the Beltway
Hmm.
news gathering organizations are reporting the same thing. It's very difficult to try to find a narrative or a defining sort of trend of what's going on here. Some of these, races and individual and states are just all over the place. And a lot of times, Washington tries to define these races as national races, but the issues are, the win or lose is decided on by a lot of local issues. You take a look at like Lisa Murkowski, who's not very popular with conservatives, but yet
Right,
with Alaska Republicans,
right.
her ability to bring, road projects there and stuff like that, that's helped her win. But more to your point, I think what we're really seeing is the Republican candidates have seized upon the idea of, or the point that, crime
Hmm.
largely in major cities and elsewhere is a real problem here. And a lot of this is attributed to what they consider quote unquote progressive district attorneys who have
Hmm.
had pretty, I don't know, soft approaches on crime, or at least they say in terms of, no a cashless bail and not pursuing misdemeanors or smaller crimes like that. Well, meanwhile, the Democrats have really seized upon the conservative majority in the Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade. So it's sort of these two things. One thing, obviously, the biggest story of the day is this Daily Beast report about Herschel Walker
Hmm. Hmm.
allegedly having funded an abortion of an ex-girlfriend. This is, an October surprise. It's a bombshell,
Right.
and he's fighting it. He says, he denies it forcefully. But this is a neck and neck race. You keep on watching these polls; they're deadlocked at like 47%. There's nowhere to go. Who's going to get that other 3%? It's a
Right.
very, very close race, and so they're all going to be close. And I think, largely, it appears as if most polling shows that the Republicans will win the House by a handful of votes, but
Hmm.
it won't be
Hmm.
a landslide. And the Senate, it could go either way. The Budd race, obviously the Walker race, the New Mexico race,
Hmm.
these are all very close. It's going to come down to the end.
I have to ask you one final question
Sure.
in the Senate races. My home state is Pennsylvania, so I served in the Santorum administration, if you will, for many years, and with Joe Pitts as on staff with him as well. So Pennsylvania is very near and dear to my heart, but I'm very concerned about this Fetterman Oz race.
Yeah.
And my I listened to my friend Chris DeGaulle, who is phenomenal on Salem Radio, Morning Drive, 990 AM. I'm putting a plug in for him. He doesn't need it, but he's still a very good friend. So I listen to him daily before my show, and he is really hitting it hard with Fetterman and Oz. What are your thoughts on that race? Do you think Philly is just going to take it over and it'll go straight to Fetterman, who still lives with his parents and who just recovered from a stroke and does not even seem to be able to put together cognitive sentences? What are your thoughts on that race? Do you think that's still pretty close to tell, or do you think it's going to turn for Oz?
Well, one thing that's interesting is that I think the largest police union in Philadelphia endorsed Oz
Yeah.
over Fetterman,
Yeah.
and Republicans have done a very good job of portraying Fetterman as not very strong, tough on crime,
Mhm.
and following the sort of what we talked about for the aforementioned progressive DA's ideas of the cashless bail and stuff like that. So they've hit him pretty hard there. I don't know. I think the Republicans have given it their best shot for this, but he's still managing to cling. I was just looking; he still holds a Real Clear Politics polling average. a 7-point lead over
Mhm.
Dr. Oz, which is, I don't want to get too wonky here, but that's outside of the margin of error. They have winnowed his lead down from double digits early. And I just don't know, what more that they can do there. I know the money is going back to Oz.
Mhm.
The money's, there was some concern about maybe he wouldn't win that race, and some of the Washington money was leaving, and some of his, super PAC money was going away. But now that seems to be coming back. They think he's competitive in this race. It's going to be very close.
Mhm. Well, from the cognitive issues, though, that is a huge concern because from the health standpoint, we're looking at a current, and I can say this, you don't have to, but I'm looking at a current dictator in chief who has very much cognitive issues. And so we have the leader of the free world with cognitive issues, and yet we may even put in the Senate someone who has cognitive issues. When are we going to hold these people accountable for the fact that when the former president, my former boss, Donald Trump, was, had COVID and he was still working around the clock from Walter Reed, but the press continued to hound him, but yet they're not saying anything about the cognitive issues of our current leader of the free world, and then also the Senate candidate. Is it because it's the legacy media not covering it, not wanting to talk about it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, a couple of things. One, I mean, you don't have to, for what it's worth, make that opinion of your own. Some of the most biggest editorial boards of major newspapers in the country, and I believe the Philadelphia Inquirer,
Mhm.
I'm not
Mhm.
positive about that, have come out and said that, Fetterman's cognitive issues are a concern. And,
Mhm.
anytime you're going to send someone to Congress, you certainly want to make sure that they're, that they have full cognitive power, to legislate and govern. That's a
Right.
legitimate concern.
Right.
And with Biden, it's back and forth. It's very difficult to say, inside his inner circle, how much, because they're very protective of any president, just how functional he is.
Mhm.
He
Mhm.
makes gaffes on the campaign trail, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yet other people say that, he's fully aware of the issues. But we should continue to always ask questions about the capability of our elected leaders, especially, President of the United States, and, anybody who's going to Senate. That's something that's a major concern of, all
Oh,
voters.
very much so. For all those who are tuning in, this is Common Sense America. I'm Eden Hill, and we've had the special honor to have Joseph Weber, who's the editor for Just the News, and he had been reporting on the North Carolina ballot fraud. And as we've been talking about news of the day, upcoming elections, 2024 midterms, and what is ahead for our nation. Any final words, Mr. Weber, in regards to upcoming pieces that we should be looking for, or anything that you would like us to check into? Any final words for the show?
A couple of things. One thing that's emerging, as you know, in North Carolina, in particular, and other places like Michigan, the Carolina Board of Elections, and in August, actually, set
Yeah.
down some rules about poll watching. The poll watching is going to be the big issue here, and how many, Wisconsin, I believe, I mentioned Michigan as well. The poll watching, how many they're going to be, how states will allow poll watchers, and how close they would get to voters, how much authority they will have,
Mhm.
whether they will be partisan. Progressives have argued that they will intimidate voters, and
Yeah.
the more conservative side of the argument says that, given what we know, we certainly need to be careful and have as many poll watchers as possible to make sure that, there is election integrity. So
Mhm.
watch that as a sidebar battle for the next couple of weeks.
Oh no, that's fabulous. Joseph, I'd love to have you come back as we get closer to midterms. If you have time to come on for about 15 minutes and kind of give us another updated breakdown on what's going around state by state with the Senate races, and also what's going on with these other defendants, I would love having you come back. Thank you so much for briefing us on all the news of the day. And for all those tuning in, this is Joseph Weber he's the editor of Just the News. We're grateful for Just the News and what you guys are doing. Thank you for giving us the facts. Thank you for investigating the truth. Thank you so
Thanks.
much, Joseph.
Thanks for having me, Ms. Hall.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye. And for all those who are tuning in, this is Common Sense America. I am Eden Hill. it's so great when we get to sit down and have some really great one-on-one conversations, just like we did yesterday with my friends in New York. And what I've been doing in and around, I've been bringing in so many national guests just because I believe in this country. I believe in what it stands for. And as this show is called Common Sense America, as you heard me refer to my friend Elizabeth Nader with Common Sense Club in Jersey, when she heard about the title, she just absolutely loved it because it makes sense. What is common sense to this country? What is common sense in our elections and our election integrity? What is common sense at the local, state, and federal level? What makes sense? And we need to be, as Joseph said with Just the News, he said, we need to be on alert with the poll watching, especially here in the great state of North Carolina, which is a battleground state. We are just about 5 minutes until 10. I'm going to play another great song for you by Will Baker, who is a local musician here in Eastern North Carolina. He is the mayor of the town of Cape Carteret. And we will be wrapping up our show on one final note. We'll be right back. Thank you. And for all of those, I'm just loving Will Baker's music. Thank you so much again for providing me some of your tunes. They are great. They're making this day go awesome. I'm just so awesome. I'm just so thankful. Also, Chris Macchio, who you guys heard yesterday, he's going to be providing me a couple of his tunes as well. He performed God Bless America for President Trump during the Trump administration, and he has some amazing tunes for Christmas. If you have not checked out his album, please go check it out. And also, just save the dates. November 8th, Election Day. Save the date. I'm going backwards a little bit. Monday, October 10th, World Mental Health Day. Also save the date for December. I believe it's the 13th, which will be the Chris Macchio and the Emmaus Center performances for the Christmas holidays with Peebo Bryson. Make sure you get your tickets. Yes, they're local and they're all around the country. I am all about promoting great people who are about faith in the public square and about lifting the good, the true, and the beautiful. That is most important because it really does connect with what is happening in our nation and at the highest levels. On a final note, we are just right at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. I just wanted to send out a quick congratulations and well done to my friend Chris Stegall. He is on 990 a.m. The Answer, the morning drive for Philadelphia. He's been there for 12 years and he is with Salem. And I am just grateful for, first of all, his friendship. We've been friends for years. We met at a Sarah Palin event when he was at Kansas City, Missouri. And he has been now in the Philly market for 12 years now. He's a part of the Faith First Broadcast Partners with Salem Media Group. And they have just announced that he has signed a multi-year extension to remain in Philadelphia. So he is on from 6 to 9 a.m. weekdays. And then I come on right at 9 a.m. weekdays here, Eastern Time. Love to have you. Follow us on Defenders Live Talk Radio or join us on LinkedIn, Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. We are carrying this as far as we can, and I am proud to start small, and I'm proud that you have been coming alongside of me from the very beginning. It has been a month, and it's been a fabulous month, and many more great things to come. God bless you. Put on the full armor of God. Let's get to work time. See you tomorrow.